Alright, so I had somebody ask how I make the appropriate size monofilament melted eyes depending on the size of the hook and so on and so forth. So I'll show you, and the process is the same. I use the same exact process whether I'm tying on a size 6 like I have here, or down to a 14 or whatever I'm doing if I'm going to use monofilament eyes. So what you see is what you need and what I use. I think it's pretty standard. I've got some 2mm foam. I've got my hook. This is some 50-pound monofilament, black Sharpie, a long pair of scissors, and a lighter. And it's fairly simple, and I'll show you how you can make a bunch of bodies at one time. So I'm going to start with the bodies. I'm going to kind of get this stuff out of the way for a second. So when you cut your foam, what I'll do is I'll take my hook and I'll put the back end up or butt it up against the back part of the foam, and then I'll put the top end of the shank right at the top of the hook like that, and I'll just press it down. And then what that does is it leaves a little impression. I'm not sure if you can see that, but it leaves a little impression. And then what I'll do is I'll flip the hook over, because oftentimes the amount of foam you need is roughly twice the length of the hook shank. And so if you need to adjust it a little bit, so you need 2.5 times or whatever, make that adjustment, and then I'll show you how to quickly make the adjustment and then cut everything out. So I'm going to do that and press that into the foam. And now if you can see that, I've got some indentations on my foam that I can cut out. Now if you want to go back an extra half distance or whatever it is you need, you can simply just shift your hook to the extra length that you want and press and whatever. And then I'll take a long pair of scissors and I'll cut that out so that I have this, and at this point this is measured at 2.5 lengths of the hook shank, and this works on straight shank, curved shank, whatever. And then what I'll do is I can't really zoom in, but you'll see where the little impressions are that run across, and I cut just above that impression, so kind of into the gap side. And what that does is that allows me to make sure that I don't have too much, but the foam basically fits the hook gap, like so. Okay, so once you have that, if you want to quickly make more, say you want to tie up a dozen of them or whatever, now you can just take your cut piece of foam, line it up, take your long scissors, and if you can make them perfect or whatever. You can also use a paper cutter. I've got a paper cutter that I cut foam on if I'm going to do like a whole bunch of them, or if I need a specific size or whatever. But then I can just continue to just put one on top of the other and trim it down, and they'll be fairly even. So that's how I determine the size of the foam that I'm using. Now for the eyes, because the person actually asked, like, how do I get the eyes the specific diameter to fit directly outside of the foam on either side. So what I do, and I know people have different methods, is first I'll take my monofilament, again this is 50-pound, to make sure that it turns black. I'll just actually color it with a Sharpie. And turn it black, and then what this does is that's going to melt black. And we can color the other side in a minute if needed. So I'm just going to start first with the one side. And I just kind of go gently with the lighter. I don't want to go too heavy too fast. It's real easy to mess these up until you get the size diameter ball that you want. So something like that. You kind of roll it around your fingers. So you get, I don't know if you guys can see that. So you get something like that. And then what I'll do is I'll take one of my cut pieces of foam and I'll just kind of line this up where I want it. Do it with my opposite hand so I can hold it here. So I would say I want it to sit that far outside. I don't know if you guys can see that, and I can't see my camera either. I had to change the tripod angle, so I can't really see what's going on. So if that's where you want it, and you've determined the size that you want the diameter of the eye, that's probably a little small. Sometimes they just don't play nice. Probably rushing it a little bit because I've got the video going. So now I've got my little eyeball that sits outside here. So what I like to do is make sure that I have enough room so that I can actually, it sits outside of about a smaller bodkin. So when I take that away, because you got to think that you're going to have other things like dubbing, and I mean whatever it is you're tying, you're going to have that material also that's going to want to protrude into the eye. And so I'm going to color up the other side. And you don't have to get this precise with this stuff. I do because I'm just a fly tying junkie. But so now I've colored my other side. And what I'll do is I'll just actually hold it, place it right where I want it. I'll put this in my non-predominant hand. I'll take my predominant hand and then pinch right along the foam edge. And now as I come back out, you want to make sure that you add the same distance that you did before, which typically is about 1/8 of an inch. If you're doing really small flies, it's going to be like 1/16 of an inch. You know, something like bigger like this, maybe closer to 1/4 of an inch. And I'll go ahead and color with my marker out to where I want to trim and start to burn. So it's kind of a it is a little bit more tedious process to do it this way than just putting a lighter to it and just getting what you get, which absolutely works. It works for a lot of people. But if you want them nice and round and colored and everything, I found that this is the way to go. And so as you start to burn that down, you'll see how this eye has become a little bit more pronounced and rounded than the other one. And then now what I can do is, as that's cooling, just twist that in my fingers. Give it a second to cool off. And you can start to line it up one side to the other. And this side didn't turn out very well. So it is a bit of a tedious process, but that's how I do it. I just find in the end, like, they make nicer eyes, and you know, some people will take and you see there, you just melt it down until you get it where you want it to be. But some people will take things like these flat pliers, you know, and they'll hold on to it or whatever, and that's great. You can do it. It keeps your hand away from the flame, but it does limit you on being able to dictate the size that you're wanting to use for whatever particular bug you're trying to tie. You know, if you're trying to tie a cicada, they're going to have some pretty big eyes. If you're trying to tie a dragonfly nymph, their eyes aren't going to be very big. And so I just slowly work it until I've got basically a bodkin width that comes off of either side of the foam. Yeah, it's shifting around on me. And so you can kind of see I've got another bodkin width on the other side. So that's it. That's how I do it. I know other people have different methods, and theirs are probably just as good or better. I don't know. It's just the way the way I do it. So I hope it helped. Join the conversation. Leave a comment below if there's something you'd like to see done, or know how I do it in a little more detail. Feel free to drop me a line. You can also check us out over at Fly Tying for Beginners on Facebook. Answer the questions. That's your golden ticket in. We do classes over there and everything else that get way more into depth and actually cover more of this kind of thing when we do that. So other than that, everybody, happy tying. Take care, and we'll see you next time.